All right. Hey, quick heads up before we dive into today's episode. I am so excited to be hosting a free live webinar called Fuel Smarter, Run Stronger, and I would love for you to join me. This is actually the first live event that I've hosted since 2023, and I don't want you to miss it. If you've ever wondered why you are working so hard, but you're just not seeing improvements with your running, why you keep getting injured every time you start a training cycle, or why you're constantly feeling confused about what to eat when throughout the day, then this webinar is for you. I'm going to be breaking down why the nutrition advice you've been hearing over and over again is just wrong if you're a runner, and what you can do instead to fuel better and get the consistency you need to reach your running goals. And trust me, it does not include cutting carbs or overthinking every single meal that you eat. This webinar is happening on Wednesday, June 18th. It's totally free, but you do have to register to save your spot and get the link. You can find the link to register in the show notes, so make sure you do that. And whether you're chasing a PR this year or just want to finally feel stronger on your runs and really feel like you're making the improvements that you deserve, Fuel Smarter, Run Stronger is here to help you get there. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Run Recover podcast, where I am very excited to be joined by Dawn Williams, who is here to share her story of going from longtime half marathoner, committed half marathoner to full marathoner, and sharing her story about what made her want to make that leap and all the things that she learned along the way. So thank you so much, Dawn, for joining me today and taking time out of your schedule to chat.
It's always a good time to talk about running. So
Absolutely. So I want to start things off by just, getting to know you a little bit better and, for you to share with all of our listeners here, a little bit more about yourself, how you got into running in the first place, and just a little bit of an intro.
Sure. So I used to run in high school many, many moons ago, but I used to run sprints. So 100 meters was my thing, 4x100 meters, and the longest I'd done was 200 meters. So, I gave it all for 200. I never thought I'd be able to run longer than that. So that was my running kind of start. And of course, life gets in the way, and then I started back running several years later. So I did my first 5K in 1998, and it was part of the breast cancer awareness month, and I did a 5K. And I was very inspired by the people running alongside me. And then I just continued running. So I used to run 5K, 4K, 5K. And I continued running from 1998. And then I got the running bug, started reading about it. And then later on, of course, in the magazines and then online and that kind of stuff. So I was hooked. I became officially hooked and started running longer distances. 10K, and then someone said to me, if you can run 10K, you can run a half marathon. I said, are you out of your mind? It's 21 kilometers and I can barely eke out 10. So I decided to give myself a challenge and do a half marathon. I think it was in 2011. I did it, and my family came, cheered me on, that kind of stuff. It was the Montreal Marathon, did that. And it was really exciting because you finished in the Olympic Stadium. So when you come into the Olympic Stadium, you're coming across the finish line, and there's a big jumbotron, and your picture's on it. It was height 100%. So I was hooked, really hooked. And then I started doing maybe 1 or 2 half marathons per year. And I really got hooked. Reading on the shoes and doing research on how to do it, that kind of stuff. I followed a plan from a book for the first half marathon, and I think I ran the closest I got to 21 before actually doing the 21. I had done 20K. So I decided I was not going to go do a 21 before the official 21. I wanted to say I did this half marathon. So that's what I did. And it was wonderful. It was hard, but it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And I think since that time I've done maybe 15 to 20 half marathons. Lots of 10s, lots of 5s as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so obviously, Montreal Marathon, half marathon there has a special place in your heart, being kind of your first one that really got you hooked. But what are some of your other favorite races that you've done?
There's one a local one here called Train du Nord, uh, to translate it, the train of the north, let's
Hmm.
say. And it's a point-to-point half marathon, which is about an hour north of Montreal. So it's in October. It goes through kind of like a forest. Part of it is gravel, part of it is paved, and it's in the beginning of October, and it sells out very quickly. It comes out. I think they launch it in January, and within 2 weeks it sold out. So I always wanted
Wow.
to do that one. I was able to do it 2 years in a row. And what's really fun, it's because it's a little bit north of Montreal, it's cooler, and I really like running in the cool. I'm not a summer runner, even though I run in the summer, but
Hmm.
it's painful for me to run in the summer. I always tell people it's easier for me to run in -30 versus +30. That's in Celsius. Um, so I really, I have a hard time with the heat. So doing a fall marathon is always a lot of fun for me. That's a fun one. One that I've always wanted to do is the wine glass marathon, or the half marathon in upstate New York. Um, because the medal is just, it's an amazing medal. And they give you pizza at the end and stuff like that. So we go for the hype.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
exactly.
those are the ones, and the Montreal one has been good in the past. I'm less interested in that one. Um, yeah, so those are the two that I would say: Train du Nord and the wine glass one. Although I haven't done it, I am very curious to do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love that it's like becoming such a, it's not just about the run itself anymore. Like there's such an
No,
experience attached to some of these,
yes, yes,
and like the scenery, everyone always loves to run somewhere that has some great
hmm,
scenery. And that's always one of the biggest pieces of feedback that you hear. But then also things like that, like, oh, they have like a really interesting, unique medal, or like the aid stations have interesting things, or the post run
yes,
spread is to
yes.
die for, or something like that, which is always really cool.
There's one in California that I did, which was it's in, I'll remember the name, but it's in running along the coast, and that one's a fantastic one because you start off. It's kind of chilly in the morning because it's 7 in the morning, but then by the time the sun comes up, it gets warm. It's a great one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so, you spent years being a very happy 5K, 10K
Hmm.
runner and thought, oh, half marathon, I could never. And then spent another many number of years being a very dedicated half marathoner and a full marathon, oh,
Hmm.
I could never. And so then one day in late 2024, doesn't Dawn come
Yes.
along and tell me that she is looking at two different marathons that she's considering signing
Hmm.
up for, and wants my thoughts on which one she should choose? And so tell us about that. What was this process for you? and
Yes.
and to kind of share, like, for other people who are maybe in the same boat, like, what is the process of feeling like you're ready to take that leap? I feel like a lot of people really rush that process of, like, they run
Hmm.
one 10K or one half marathon and immediately jump to a marathon. But for you, you really took your time with advancing your distances over years of being a runner. So yeah, so what was kind of the process, and what prompted you to decide that, like, this was the year that you wanted to run a marathon?
Yeah. Um, I always said, I if everybody used to ask me, so when are you doing a marathon? I said, I will never do a marathon. I used to tell that consistently to people. I think I might even be in my LinkedIn profile. I said, I'm a half marathon, never going to do a full
Yeah.
marathon. And here's the reason why I said that. First of all, I'm a slow runner. I'm not a fast runner. So when I get to the end, I am spent. And the Montreal Marathon, the way that it's done, you get to the end, there's about maybe 500 meters left to go. And there's a sign and it says half marathon this way, marathon this way. I used to think to myself, I can't imagine doing that all over again. So I was like, never. I could not do that. Like, it was just mental.
Yep.
So when I was thinking about it, I don't know, I was just having these thoughts of going and doing a marathon. I said, you're not getting any younger. You don't want to die and say, I was really curious, I wanted to do it, but now I'm too old and broken up to do it. So I
Sure.
said,
Yeah.
let's do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So my question was, do I do a spring marathon or a fall marathon? So that's when I called you. And we chatted about it. And I think you made me realize that a fall marathon means you have to train in the summer, and a
That is
spring
what it means.
marathon means
Yes.
you train in the winter.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I said, okay, that's clear for me. I am also, it was the anticipation of the marathon. If I made up my mind to do it, I want to just do it and get it over with. That's
Hmm.
how my brain was thinking. So that was, I think it was in November when we spoke.
Yeah.
So then and the other thing I wanted was I wanted a point to point, because I didn't want to have that feeling of getting to a sign and saying 21 more,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that would have psyched me out.
Yeah.
So I looked for point to point within an hour or 2 hours of Montreal, and I found one in April in Cornwall, Ontario. So that was my process to do it. It was really about, I don't want to get to the end of my life and say I should have done it and then I can't do it now. I can do it now. I'm blessed enough to be able to run. Let's take
Yeah.
advantage of this, even if
Yeah.
you're slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
Mhm.
when we're talking about something as monumental as running a marathon, which when you're so immersed in the running community and like this is just such a big part of your life, like you said, I mean, you go all in with the magazines and learning about the gear and the strategies and just wanting to really be like a
Mhm.
student of the sport of running. And of
Yes.
course, for all of us who work in the running space and do this day in and day, like all we think about is running, all we talk about is running. What we need to realize sometimes and kind of take a step outside of the running world and look at is the fact that like most people don't do this. Like running a
Exactly.
marathon is a huge accomplishment that the vast
Mhm.
majority of people will never do. It's just when you're in
Right.
it feels like everybody's running a marathon every weekend on your
Exactly.
social media feeds.
Exactly.
And so then we
Hmm.
start to
Exactly.
discount the challenge that it is. We start to discount, you know, what an accomplishment it is because we just didn't do it
Hmm.
fast enough. But like, no,
Right.
it just
Yes.
simply putting in the time into the training, because as we're going to talk about here, like it's a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of training,
Yep.
just to get across that finish line. Like whether you do it in 3 hours or 5 hours or 7 hours, like it getting across that finish line is such a huge thing and should be celebrated.
Exactly. Exactly. And you're absolutely right. You have the impression that everybody's running a marathon because who you follow and what you
Yes.
look at online is all about marathon running.
Yes.
And you think in your head, oh, I look like that. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't look as fast.
Yeah. And it's just like, and especially after a big race weekend, like, we're the day that Dawn and I are here recording this episode, the Ottawa race weekend just occurred. And I
Right.
mean, the way the algorithms are set up these days, like my feed is full of people who did Ottawa race weekend. And it just gives you this like huge sense of FOMO, I think, every single time when you're like, oh, you want to run everything. And I think we need to
Yes.
just hit the brakes and, think
Yes.
and be really smart, like you did. Be really thoughtful and really intentional about the events that we sign up for. And I love you sharing your process of looking at your options, finding races that fit what you like best and what will work best
Hmm.
for you, choosing a race that is a good time of year for you, and just like really being intentional and thoughtful about how you select the events that you run. Because if you get swept up in the FOMO or in the popularity of running certain
Yep.
events, I think you can get to a point where you're maybe doing some of these things for the wrong reason.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Because it's a powerful sway, social media. It's a
Yeah.
powerful sway.
Yeah.
I took my time and I committed to it. And I'm a consistent runner. I run 6 days a week. So it wasn't a question that I wasn't coming from nowhere. Um, but it's still a jump. I mean, the marathon is a beast. It
Mhm.
really is a beast.
Mhm.
Uh, Despite what you see online and everybody, doing their videos as they're running and they look like they're not even out of breath and
Yeah,
all those
yeah.
kinds of things, it's a beast.
Yes.
And everyone goes into the pain cave. Everyone, even the elites.
Yes.
So,
Yep. Oh,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you're choosing an event that you weren't able to train for very well because you were in a busy phase of life, that training and getting ready for a marathon at the same time as whatever wasn't a good idea. Or, maybe you do not enjoy training in the summer heat as much as training in the winter. Like all these
Yeah.
factors. And I think a huge takeaway from people listening to this and hearing your story is just, yeah, give yourself a little bit of time to like pick the right events for you. Like, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Don't get swept up
Yeah.
in the most popular, biggest, it doesn't always have to be a world major. To just really
Yeah.
sit and make sure that what you're picking is going to be something that you're really going to enjoy the whole process from start to finish.
Yeah, exactly. And that to know that everyday runners are runners too. You don't have to be elite, sub elite, or anything like that. You just have to have just use your feet and go.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So backing up a little bit from you actually,
Mhm.
deciding that you wanted to run this marathon, um,
Mhm.
when did you decide and how did you decide that you wanted to work with someone on your training and on your nutrition? Because I mean, you're a
Right.
very experienced runner. You've got a lot of races under your belt. What was the shift for you that you thought maybe there's something else I could be doing a bit better here?
Let me tell you about that. So, in two, in two different races, at the end of two races, I passed out. Okay, so I got my medal. So just say that it was after I passed the finish line.
Yeah.
So the one race was a half marathon in Montreal. I think it was in April. It rained the entire time, and I did not take in liquids because when it's raining and it was a little chilly, I didn't have the instinct to sip. So I finished running. I took the metro there because it was a local race that the metro it comes out of the metro and you start the race. So I was taking the metro, got my banana. I didn't even stop and got my medal, got my banana, and I'm in the metro talking to somebody that I know, and then I'm starting to feel a little woozy. Back up to the wall so I don't fall into the tracks of the metro. So passed out there, ambulance, all that kind of stuff, dehydration. Then maybe 2 years or a year later, did not learn my lesson again. At this time at Ottawa, really hot. So it's Ottawa is a May race, and it can be a very hot. It's probably one of the hottest, the first hot weekends in the
Yeah.
summer. And so I no longer do Ottawa because of that, just because I'm so sensitive to that. Finished my race, got the medal and the banana, pass out. So I knew I was doing something wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
So
This isn't
started
normal.
doing some reading. No, no. I started doing some reading, figuring out, okay, what am I doing wrong? Why do I finish? I'm salty, complete white salt stains. All I know I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing reading, and then I said, okay, I'm going to work with a coach and I started working with you in 2023, I believe.
2024.
2023, 2024. Okay,
Yeah.
so 2024. Yeah, exactly. At the beginning of 2024, because I knew there was something. I kept hitting a wall on the longer runs, so I knew
Mhm.
it was fuel related. And it's funny, you can read about these things, but if you don't, it's to know it and to know it are two different things.
Yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
yes,
So you read it, and I know those things, but I didn't do those things. I
yes.
read those things.
Yeah.
So then, I started working with you, and you were very non-judgmental. You asked me some questions, and you basically said you're not eating
Yeah.
enough. You're not drinking enough.
Yeah.
So from that, I learned. So I learned, and I never, since that time, even in the heat of last summer and everything like that, never felt like I hit a wall since I
Mhm.
started incorporating those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that led me to work with you. So I understand the science behind it and why I needed to do what I needed to do. Whether it would be hydration, fueling, intra run food fueling, I learned all of those things which I thought I knew before.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And like what you described is so perfectly put, right? It's that knowledge does not equal behavior change. And we know
Exactly.
that like in nutrition as a whole, right?
Yes.
Knowing the thing does not there and what is that gap or that barrier that we need to overcome. And sometimes it is as simple as someone sort of sitting you down and saying, hey, listen,
Exactly.
Dawn, you need to be doing something differently versus just sort of reading general information that, while it is perfectly accurate, it sometimes is just hard to like
Yes.
sort of internalize that and actually take action and make the change.
Exactly. And because you read it and you know, your brain knows you're supposed to do that, but why aren't you doing it? Or
Yeah.
why are you, I don't know. I don't know why we do that. We read it and okay, looks good. But then I'll give you an example of something during my, when I was carbo loading just before
Yeah. Yeah.
this marathon. I took a picture of my lunch plate. I don't know if you remember that. And I sent you a picture.
Yep.
And I was all proud of myself. Look at all these carbs on my plate. I got rice, I got chicken, I got something else. And you looked at it and you said, yeah, I might want to add some bread to that. I'm like, oh, I was so proud. I missed the mark. So even with my knowledge, I still missed a little bit of the mark. So,
Yeah.
so it's just a constant reminder, and it's someone who's a professional working with you. You're a professional in two ways, in the running and in the nutrition way. So it's fantastic to get that information firsthand. And for me,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing too, is like, you can look at some of the guidelines and that sort of thing. But there is a lot in sport nutrition that does need to be personalized and adjusted for you as an individual. And at
yeah.
that point, sometimes we're getting into having to do a lot of like calculations and make sure that we're using
Mm-hmm.
the right numbers and the right calculation and stuff like that. That, like, certainly if you want to spend enough time on this yourself, you can probably figure it out. Like, there's no
Yeah.
secrets. There's nothing that I know that isn't out there and available on the internet somewhere, I'm sure. But
Right.
it takes a lot of sorting through and a lot of filtering to be able to pick the right information and to apply it to yourself. This episode will probably come out after I did an episode on like using AI, like using like
Yes.
chat GPT kind of thing for making yourself a running plan, or even a nutrition
Yes.
plan versus working with a
Mm-hmm.
coach. And, part of it is that you can use these tools, but you have to have a tremendous amount of knowledge on the topic to make sure that what you're getting back is legitimate and is going to work.
Yes.
And that's where I think it ends up being not that helpful for a lot of people, right? The same with going down the Google rabbit hole of everything, where
Yes.
you can spend hours and hours and hours Googling and still may not come up with the right answer because you need to know how to sort through it all.
Exactly. And it's funny that you say that because before I started working with you, I did go to ChatGPT and I said,
Oh, did you? Okay.
you make me a program to go and I
Yeah.
run in this is the frequency is it was okay, but
Sure.
I
Sure.
didn't
Yeah.
understand all the terms. It was okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't use it because I started working with you and I said, well, I'd rather work with somebody who has more, who's knows who I am, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is there's a lot of garbage out there online. A lot of people
Yes, that
telling
too.
lots of, there's, crazy stuff out there.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that it just comes with having to have a tremendous amount of knowledge sometimes. So, yeah.
mhm, yeah.
So then, we've talked a little bit about, some of the big things that you started doing differently when it came to like your
Mhm.
intra run fueling and thinking about hydration and just stuff that just obviously was making a really big impact in your training. But overall, what were some of the biggest, most impactful lessons that you learned along the way? And definitely from the fueling, hydration, and some of the like more logistical, tactical things that we worked on. But even just going from, just even in the process of marathon training, like there's so much to be learned and so much to be uncovered in just doing a big event for the first time. Like what were some of the lessons
Mhm.
that you took away from all of it?
My biggest lesson was the mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the mental piece. It's very funny. It, I don't need to be motivated to go to run. I do this in the morning. That's the way I start my day. It's before my breakfast. So the mental thing, I'm going to park the mental thing for a second. But one thing I did learn was because I'm a morning runner, I kind of get up, have a coffee and a banana and go.
Mhm.
But I had to learn to do it differently so on Wednesdays I normally do a 10K and on the Saturdays I do a longer run. So I had to do that a little bit differently because a coffee and a banana for a slower runner like me who's going to be out there more than an hour, I needed to adjust that. That's what I learned from you. The other thing that I learned was you don't have to eat your carbs, you can drink your carbs. So you can have a glass of orange juice when you're
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
a little bit um, and taking the time to do the calculation before you buy whichever gel you want to use, whichever. I started off using the applesauce packages, but with the number that you have to take in a long run, they're huge. So where are
Mm-hmm.
you going to store that?
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things taking into consideration the practical stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every Saturday when I did my long run, I practiced the way I would do it in the race so that I
Mm-hmm.
have no surprises. So I eliminated some things. But the biggest thing that I learned was the mental piece.
Yeah.
As motivated and, as self-motivated as I am, I would look at my program and look at what was coming on Saturday and it would freak me out. I don't know why, because then I started running. The first time I had to run over 21 kilometers, I think you gave me a run of 22 kilometers. Even though and half is 21.1 and I've done that many times, mentally going to 22 freaked me out. Couldn't
Yeah.
sleep the Friday night. And then I did it. And then the following week it went up a little bit. And again, every Friday night I was losing sleep. So I had to find a way to not psych myself out. That
Mm-hmm.
was the biggest piece for me. And that's what I would tell anybody going from a half to a full is the mental piece. Don't underestimate how
Mm-hmm.
important it is to get your
Yeah.
mind in the right place.
Yeah.
Um, you know, there were a couple of days in the winter where there was just so much snow in Montreal. I had to run on the treadmill. That's another thing. So I'm lucky enough. I have a very old treadmill. The treadmill's maybe 15 years old, and I always used to call it the dreadmill. I hated the treadmill,
Yeah.
but then because I was training and I had something on my training calendar, one weekend we got 74 centimeters of snow. There's no way I'm going to go running for the next 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
So the treadmill that I hated so much became a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find a way to like the treadmill and to appreciate the fact that I had a treadmill as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to talking so badly about the treadmill in the
Yes.
past.
Yes.
Because in the past, I could not imagine doing 5 kilometers on a treadmill. One Saturday, I did 18 kilometers on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I prepared the night before mentally. I prepared the iPad was charged. Had all my gels, everything like
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
So it's about mindset.
Yeah.
So I
Yep.
changed my mindset about the treadmill, which made me not hate the treadmill and appreciate the fact that I could go running
Yep.
on a day when I couldn't go running outside. So
Yes.
that was the first thing. And then the
Yep.
second thing was the mindset of I'm going for a long run. I'm going longer than I've ever done in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had trouble with that one. It took me a long time. I read a book. I bought Dina Kastler's book, Let Your Mind Run. That's the name of it. And it was about how she used to freak herself out before her races, her big races, and what she did to overcome it. I devoured that book, I think, in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great book about mindset. I highly recommend it to anybody who's feeling a little bit stressed and thinking about, oh my goodness, I'm going to do something I've never done before, or this is going to be hard. So mindset, and you and I spoke about this. You have to anticipate it will get hard.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared for it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when it gets hard? Be
Yeah.
prepared. It's coming.
Yeah.
So what's your mantra? What are you going to do? I've seen so many people online. They write stuff on their arm. They have something that they repeat to themselves. What are you going to do? It's not easy, because if it was easy, everybody do it.
Yes.
It is
Yep.
a difficult thing. It is a
Yep.
beast. So be prepared mentally. When it gets hard, what are you going to do?
Yep. Yep.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said so many good things there. I'm going to try to make sure that I can kind of go back and touch on all of them. Anticipating that the going is going to get tough at some point. And this is true for speed workouts. This is true for long runs, and this is very true for race day. And I think that sometimes people think that if the training has gone well and they have executed their training plan well, then race day should be a breeze. And yes, we've all had races that we've shown up to just have a good time, and we're kind of just, enjoying the day and easy pace, kind of the whole thing. And yeah, you can get out there and you can have a day like that. But if you're, you know, trying to challenge yourself even a little bit on the day of that race,
Mhm.
like even running a half marathon is never easy. And if you're trying to run a
No.
faster 10K or a faster 5K, like it's gonna be hard to do these things.
Yes.
And as
Yes.
soon as we can understand that and acknowledge that and prepare for that, I think that that just helps so much with not
Yeah.
getting into a very deep negative hole mentally when the going
Yes.
gets tough, because like you said, it will.
Yes. Exactly. And even for somebody, I'm a positive person. I was
Yeah.
very surprised that I was going down that doubt. It's the doubt. Can I do this? Can I
Yeah.
finish this? Am I going to embarrass myself? It was the doubt.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
mhm,
And then the other thing, that I also think is really, really great to, kind of bring to the forefront and talk about here is your relationship with the treadmill. And,
mhm,
like there's a lot of opinions out there online about the treadmill. And,
yes.
it almost becomes a little bit of like it's like uncool to like running on the treadmill. I don't know. Like that's just sort of the
Mm.
perception I guess,
Yes.
because people will like sort of, oh yeah, no, I only run outside as some sort of like badge of honor. And when you live in a place that the weather is so all over the place sometimes, and I mean even people who live
Mhm.
places that it gets extremely, extremely hot, right? Having other options so that we can be consistent with our training is far more
Yep.
important than, inevitably having to
That's
miss a
right.
bunch of workouts because you refuse to, run inside ever.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. You know what? The treadmill became a tool,
Yeah.
and I was appreciative that I did have that tool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus in January, I hated it.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Exactly. Exactly. And like you said, knowing that you're going to do these runs on the treadmill and and being okay with it, like psyching yourself
mhm,
up for this treadmill run and getting into that mindset of positive thinking around it versus getting out of bed in the morning. Oh,
exactly.
I have to run on the treadmill today. Oh, like of course
Yeah.
the run is going to
Yeah.
be crappy if that's how you feel about it. And
Exactly.
like just mindset is everything in this sport. It really
Absolutely.
it really makes or breaks things.
And also too, you also have to not only run when it's nice outside. Because
Yes.
guess what? My marathon, it rained from the beginning to the end. The entire race, it rained. So
Yeah.
had I not, I'm not bothered by that. Had I not practiced in the rain,
Yep.
I would have probably been miserable. I wasn't miserable because of the weather at all.
Yeah.
So it from the beginning to the end, it never stopped.
Yep. Yep. But no, and that's another really important point, because there are a lot of us who, are the fair weather runners, who, yeah, if it's raining outside, we stay on the treadmill, or if it's too cold, or if it's too hot, or if it's too windy, or if it's whatever.
Yeah.
And this is something that I actually have also been working on these last couple of months, um, is just kind of getting out and doing it anyway. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it might not be my favorite run, but I definitely feel a different level of accomplishment when I come back from a run that had those kind of adverse weather conditions. Because now, yes, if that is a condition that I experience on race day, right? Really crazy winds or rain
Yeah.
or cold or hot or whatever, like you've ran in that in training. And if you
Mhm.
only run outside when it's a perfect 15 to 20 degrees and the sun is shining and it's not windy,
Yes.
then yeah, you're probably going to have a really tough race day if the weather conditions aren't perfect, and have a
Exactly.
lot more anxiety leading into that race if you're checking the weather and things aren't looking good.
Yes, exactly. And you asked me about what else I learned. It's the effect of gels on your stomach over a long
Mm-hmm.
period of time.
Yeah.
Because if you've never practiced that, you don't know what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
2 hours, 3 hours. If you've only done a half and you never practiced the gels and all, because it's another story because you're
Yes.
putting in a lot of different,
Yep.
that's another thing I had to learn to deal with. And
Mm-hmm.
I experimented with different gels and different ways to fuel over a long period of time because it's sloshing around in your stomach for a long period of time. So it doesn't feel the same as a half marathon.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. And you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, twice the fueling needs that you have to be taking in and
Yes.
being really diligent with it. And especially in like cooler temperatures when you're not going to feel as thirsty, like running in the rain on a
Exactly.
cooler day when you do have
Yes.
to almost mechanically take in that fuel and that
Yes.
hydration. Because when it's hot outside and you feel yourself sweating and you feel yourself heating up, you want that cold drink and you want that fuel and it's easier to take that stuff in sometimes. But on those cold days, you end up getting pretty deep into it before you're like, oh shoot, I should probably take a gel.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
So
happened
yeah,
to me in
so I
Ottawa,
mean,
not drinking because it was raining.
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I even when it's cooler outside, like this morning, for example, it was only a few degrees above zero when I went for my run, and I realized it had been like half an hour. I hadn't even taken a sip yet. Now I know, you can run for half an
Mhm.
hour and not have a
Yeah.
ton of water, you'll be okay. But like, I would never do that on a hot
Mm.
day.
No, no, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, it's really cool that so many lessons learned and so many new things and big breakthroughs too, right? With
Mhm.
that like mental space and stuff like that. And so how do you see that? Are you one and done on the marathon? Do you think you're going to tackle another one? Are you, has the marathon bug bit you now?
I think no, no. I think I'm one and done.
Fair
I
enough.
think so.
Fair enough. Going into ultras because that seems to be the next
No,
step, right?
no, no. That's a heck to the no.
We'll see. We'll be back here in 10 years with Dawn after she does her first like 100-kilometer race or something like that. Um, so now, for your next, whether it's a 10K that you've got coming up next or half marathon or, whatever you might have on your
Mhm.
calendar, how do you see that whole experience really helping you or changing how you approach future shorter distances?
Well, definitely the hydration
Yeah.
and definitely the food. The whole carb intake. Definitely, it's a game changer for me. I definitely did something different. I trying to get to the 60 grams an hour.
Yeah.
Not always there, but I'm much better than I was
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
I have not hit a wall. And during the marathon training, I started doing half marathons every weekend.
Yeah.
In part of my training, I'm like, and I sat back and I said, "Oh my goodness! A month ago, my longest distance was a half marathon. Now I'm doing one every weekend.
Yeah.
Wow, how times have changed.
Yes.
So perspective changes, right?
Yeah,
You
it
think you
does.
can't
It
do
does.
something, and then you look back and you go, "I did it. I
Hmm.
did it." So I would say as the summer months come, I'm still trying to figure out that magic solution for running in the sun. I don't. I've researched online. I don't think there's a magic solution. It's like some people just. I'm just one of these people. I'm just going to run in the sun slower, and that's it.
There.
It's
That's
not
all
going
you
to be
can do.
fast.
It's all you can do.
Exactly. But one of the things that, some of the workouts that you gave me, so I would do strides at the end, that kind of stuff. Um, and running on tired legs. Those are things I never practiced being faster. So those are things I take with me.
Hmm.
So I know that I actually can run on tired legs and do strides at the end of a run. And and the biggest thing was I wasn't doing my long runs slow enough. I was doing them too quickly. I was going
Hmm.
out too quickly. So that I learned. So it's the 80-20 rule, I guess it
Yeah.
is. So I was going out way too quickly and then like petering out
Fading.
in my
Yeah.
long run, as opposed to having a steady uh, pace, a
Yeah.
steady, a real slow distance, slow run.
Yeah.
So those
Yep.
are things that I've learned, and I have to tell myself when I get out the door, this is a slow run, slow down.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, that's like such a classic misstep that it's so funny how
yeah,
every sort of level of runner, new runners, experienced runners, fast
mhm,
runners, slow runners, like it doesn't matter where
Yeah.
you are on the running spectrum, you're probably making that mistake.
Yes.
Until
Yeah.
someone has sat you down and looked you in the eyes and said, you need to run slower. And you can see it, you see it all over social media all the time, right? Just like
All
you
the
were
time.
saying with
Strava?
fueling, like all of it constantly,
Yeah.
right? But it's just like it's a lesson that you just have to learn for yourself. And it's often when now I'm reaching this point where I cannot ever go further. Like I'm always hitting the wall at this distance. The
Mhm.
only way I'm going to break through that is to slow down.
Exactly. And you have to not worry about what your pace is on Strava. It doesn't matter. You're
Yes.
running for
Yeah.
you. It does because it is part of it. You're
Yes.
looking at your pace thinking, oh my goodness, that's pretty slow. But when you
Yeah.
told me conversational pace, my sister came to town. We're running and we're talking, and she was training with me as well too.
Yeah.
And we're talking conversational pace, and she's like, "Okay, well, let's do that." But we realized that we were not running necessarily at conversational pace on our long runs. We were running a little bit too fast. So
Yeah.
really dialing it back and not worrying what other people are doing. Anyway, you don't want to get injured, so that's the other thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So out of all of the things that you learned, nutrition, hydration, mindset, like all this stuff, different workout styles and everything too there, what surprised you the most? Like what was the thing that came out of this whole journey for you that you just did not expect at all?
it was mindset.
Yeah.
I did not expect the mindset would be this big of a factor in running a marathon.
Yeah.
Strange that I would not think of that, but that it would affect me that much and that
Yeah.
it was something that I had to actively work on. It
Hmm.
wasn't a passive thing. I had to say to myself and talk to myself. I read that book.
Yeah.
That was and I've heard people say that it's 50% mental, 50% physical. It might actually be. If you put the work in,
Yep.
the physical work in, you do have to put the mental work in too.
Yep.
I mean, unless I'm very different, but I really felt that the mental work was work.
Yep.
I had to make an effort to work on that to make
Yes.
sure that it joined up with my 16 weeks of training.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And so
Yeah.
for the people who are listening today that are kind
Mhm.
of resonating with what you're saying, maybe they've been a runner for a long time and the
Mhm.
marathon is sort of looming and they're not quite sure if they're ready to
Yeah.
make the leap, or, if it intimidates them, or even people who haven't been running maybe near as long as you have, but still are not sure if they should like do it, if they're ready, and just,
Mhm.
all these other factors. What advice do you have for people who are kind of where you were sitting 6 or 8 months ago?
It's a gradual process. If you look forward in the future in the 16 weeks and say I'm going to be running 42, you might be intimidated by that.
Yeah.
But if you look on a week by week basis and not even look too far ahead in advance, actually, because that might freak you out too.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I would look back, I would say, oh, I did this.
Yeah.
As opposed to looking forward and saying I need to be at 30K in this number of weeks, which
Mm-hmm.
you get.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never get there. I'm only doing 10 as an
Yeah.
example. But it's funny when you do a little bit,
Yeah.
it's just like running a 5K.
Yeah.
A 5K is 5K down the road, but
Yeah.
it's one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
And if you take it as in bite-sized pieces, it's much more manageable than looking at the big scary goal at the end. That's what
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Stop looking at the big scary goal at the end. Say, I have a plan,
Yeah.
and this 16-week plan or however long plan you have is going to get me to where I need to get to. I cannot worry about what's happening in 16 weeks.
Yeah.
I got to do this piece, which is going to help me next week, which is going to
Yeah.
help me the week after, bite-sized pieces. That's what I would say.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I really, really love that because I think a lot of people do look too far ahead, and
Mm-hmm.
especially mentally, right? When
Yeah.
they're in the low points of the long run or the speed workout or whatever it might be, and you're
Mm-hmm.
in that spot where there's always that point of mental, you know, fatigue and that low point during some of those workouts. It always is that like bigger overarching, oh, I couldn't even finish this 3 kilometer tempo. pace run today.
Mhm.
Oh, how am I ever going to do my goal pace?
Exactly.
It's like, well, like, listen, that's 4 months away. Like,
Yes, exactly,
don't like
exactly.
don't let that be the thing that then brings you down and ultimately holds you back. And I think too, from what you said, like, it's also picking the right race so that you can do the things week after week and build towards that big goal. And again, if you're choosing a race that you can't fully commit to in that way, if you're choosing a
Yeah,
race that is in the middle of a really busy season of life, or it's just not a good time for you to be trying to be very consistent with your running. Because I think, what I really want people to understand about your story here, Dawn, is how unbelievably consistent of a runner you are and have been for
mhm,
years and years and years before you and I even started working
mhm,
together. So you're coming in
right.
already being a 6 day a week runner. And then from
Mhm.
there, like, even still, it was a grind sometimes to work up to running a marathon. So if you're someone who has trouble even consistently, looking back over the course of like 4 to 6 weeks, and you're maybe not even running 3 or 4 days a week consistently week by week, like, focusing on that stuff first before you just go ahead and sign up for that marathon, that then it's like you're trying to build
Yeah,
consistency and volume and add the intensity and like hold your body and mind together while you're doing it all.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
too much. It's
exactly.
too much.
Yeah, and I would also add to that. Prior to being in a 16-week block, I used to just run and just go. I just do go wherever I went, and I
Yeah.
had no purpose to any run that I did.
Yep.
What was fun was learning the different kinds of runs and why am I doing this? Why am I doing a speed work?
Mm,
Why am I doing strides? That was really interesting because it
yeah.
gave me purpose. It's fun to run with no purpose. It is.
Yes. Yeah.
But in the training, it was fun to know why am I doing this way. That
Yeah.
was really good because okay, I'm working on my speed. Okay, I'm working on my threshold. I'm trying to figure out my threshold. Those
Yeah.
are great things to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And
Mhm.
and you're right. I mean, there's both of them are great, right? Sometimes running
Yeah,
just for the sheer joy of running and just getting out there and,
exactly.
and getting out some fresh air and sunshine and hear the birds chirping and all the wonderful things. But when we're
Yeah.
talking about preparing for a race, probably is beneficial to have a little bit more structure, especially, with the volume
Yeah.
building and making sure you're doing the right workouts for the right purpose. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yes, exactly. And I would say that it's been a month since I did my marathon. And now that I'm running just for pure joy, there's even
Yeah.
added appreciation to that, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
I love that. I love that. And this, and again, like, this is something that I highly, highly recommend people do for themselves after a race is like take that off season, whether it's a month or it's 6 months, like, I don't, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter how long it is, but give yourself a break from that structured training. Cause by the end of that marathon cycle, like, you're doing a lot. You're running a lot. The workouts are long. The workouts are tough. The recovery time is limited. And you just need that like mental break sometimes from following a plan. And if we are doing back to back to back to back races
yes.
all the time, it's too much. You need that space to just breathe and just, yeah, run for the joy of it.
Run for the joy. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, yes, wonderful. All right, Dawn, before we sign off for today, do you have any final thoughts you wanted to share? Any last bits of wisdom from all of the mindset training that you did, and all kinds of other? I know you were sharing lots of stuff with me along the way. You were like,
Yes.
always coming with little tidbits of things you had picked up, which I think is great
Yeah.
because then I can share it with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I would say don't be afraid to commit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're curious about going and doing the full marathon, don't be afraid. And like I said, look at the few steps in front of you rather than the big staircase in front of you. Look at the
Yeah.
steps in
Yeah.
front. Because you might just freak yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid. I set some very simple goals to do this. I just wanted to do it. And I said, I want to run the marathon. I don't want to poop myself. Because you hear that all the time.
Fantastic.
But
You know
that
what?
I wanted to finish in dignity with a smile with my head up. So I practiced all the gels
Yep.
and practiced all the
Yeah.
hydration to make sure I didn't have any stomach issues, on race
Yep.
day, and thankfully did not. So don't put yourself a huge goal. Just put yourself a goal for the first one to say, let me
Yep.
finish with a smile. I want to enjoy this.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, and really helping to, I think, inspire and motivate and, give some clarity to those people who are on the fence. And I don't want to sound like a big marathon pusher. Like, I don't like, not everyone, I'm not like, I don't make money off people like running marathons. They don't like secretly pay me to make people run marathons. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I know that it feels like a big step, and there's so much pressure online, I think, to do these things, that to be able to sit and do that little bit of soul searching to decide if this is something that is right for you, and this is how you can
Mhm.
get that clarity, and this is how you can know, and then look at how much fun we can have
Yeah, yeah,
trusting the process and getting through it. So
exactly. Run your own race. Don't matter. No,
yeah.
it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. Run your own
Yes,
race.
exactly, exactly. All right. Well, it has been a pleasure catching up and chatting with you, Dawn. And once again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Stephanie, for having me on.
All right, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really hope that you enjoyed hearing more about Dawn and her marathon accomplishment. And we will catch you right back here for next week's episode. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.